Hey everybody, welcome. We presented this session at CRMUG Summit last week, and this session was not recorded, and so we wanted to record it and give it to all of you. So this is going to be 60 tips in 60 minutes. Heidi and I are going to dive in. Our slides are going to be changing automatically every 45 seconds or something like that, and we are just going to be sharing a whole bunch of knowledge, and we hope that it is helpful for you. And we hope that you'll put your comments or extra tips down in the comments below. All right, you ready?
I think.
Okay.
I hope I don't get cut off again. I never got through the first tip when we were at Summit. Yeah. Let's do it. Talk faster.
And here we go.
Okay, our first tip is an important one. We're going to make sure that you are all following solution management best practices. And what does this mean? Well, first of all, friends, you are going to use solution files to package your changes and updates. You're going to use at least 2 environments, a sandbox and a production. Then you can make your changes in sandbox in a solution file, which is a container. You can test them, have your users test and verify, and then move it over to production in that solution file. Set up a prefix or a publisher for your changes. So don't use new _, make your own so you know where the changes originated from. And if you're working with partners or buying third-party solutions, you'll be able to see where those changes came from as well. In your solution file, don't include all components or metadata for tables unless you need them, only the small.
And we do encourage you to always be using your solutions to move your configurations between environments. So we are giving you all those tips about how to use your solutions, and we want you to actually use them, because a lot of people are still trying to make some small changes in production. Don't do that. It's only going to cause you problems later. And we also are encouraging you to pay attention to managed solutions, and these can be really helpful and great. This is the recommended approach from Microsoft, and they can work really well and be really great in your environment if you kind of plan for that from the beginning. If you're already in an unmanaged solution environment, let's talk about it a little more before you make the switch. But if we're starting out a new implementation, we do encourage you to look at managed solutions. Also, we want you to think about a configuration table, because like we said, we don't want you making changes in production. We don't want you making changes in other environments that are not dev. So to avoid that, a recommendation is to have a configuration table. So you have a table in Dataverse in your Dynamics that you use to hold all of these things that change between environments, right? So that could be your environment name, it could be your SharePoint document repository, it could be maybe who should get notification emails, or if emails should be sent. So create a table that holds all of this data, and then use in Power Automate, when you create a new flow, grab that configuration table, grab the data point you need, and use that to customize the flow. And really excellent.
All right, next we're going to talk about some user adoption stuff. So first, form a group of end users in your organization. This can be any term that makes sense with your organization culture. We've had super CRMers, Power App Ninjas, champions, early adopters, advocates. What's really important with this group of end users is that you choose individuals with varied skill levels, not just all the tech superstars. We want some of those people that are harder to convert. Maybe your sticks in the mud, the people that say they don't like it. You definitely want your influencers, no matter what their skill level is. If they're an influencer at your organization, try to recruit them to your group of Power App Ninjas or super CRMers. And finally, you want to include that group right from the start, from requirements to go live and way beyond. So awesome tip to use that. I'm also going to roll into this one. So once you have this group of users, you want to make sure that you include them in the requirements phase. And I feel like a lot of people don't do this part. You'll include them in UAT and testing and rolling out. But it's really important to talk to the people that are going to use the system to make sure that you're building something that benefits them. So I like this graphic. It makes me laugh. But the client side is like management, project team. It's the people that are designing the app and building it based on the specs. And they've built this beautiful mobile that they love. They think it's great, but they never considered the user perspective, which is the baby in this, who's just laying down and looking up at butts. So we're not going to build butts. We're going to build something that benefits our users. And we do that by making sure that what we're building helps make their life better, quicker, easier.
And how can we make their lives better? It's by finding their pain, right? So finding out why users aren't using the system, maybe why they're not using their current system or why they're not using a system that's already rolled out, right? Find that pain, do that by job shadowing. You could have a ride along and just look for anything that they're doing manually, things that are taking multiple clicks or things that you can tell that they're frustrated by, right? And then find a way to automate it. How can we use the technology we have to make that better? Right. And these could be small fixes, right? Moving a field from a tab to the main form, or it could be using Power Automate to build a whole flow to replace a manual process. You have lots of options there, but this is where you're really going to get value for your users.
Another way you can help your users is to streamline your business processes. Now, this, of course, assumes that your organization has a defined business process. If they don't, you get to be the lucky person to help start that conversation and figure out what it is. But most organizations have a process that they want their people to follow. And sometimes it's all over the place, right? User A has A, B, and C. User B uses A, Z, and Q. And you have the ability to kind of streamline what that process is for all of your users to ensure some consistency and standardization. And there are two great tools you can use to help with this. Those are business process flows. So there's little target dots across the top of this opportunity sales process, and Power Automate. These are great ways to ensure that your organization is using the same business process.
Now we have a few tips about business rules and how I can use my business rules to streamline my forms, right? So business rules allow us to build form level scripting in a point and click fashion, right? So I don't need to know JavaScript, but I can do some of that same functionality with a business rule. And so one thing we want to do is minimize the number of required fields. And our next tip kind of goes along with this, right? But we want to make sure if there's a field that they don't need to fill out at this stage, we don't want it to be required, because the more required fields on the form, the more junk data you're going to get, right? So we want to make sure that our forms are clean and that only the things that they know right now are required.
So building on that, here is a business use case of how to use set required. So our use case here is our fictional company has both residential and commercial leads that come in. If a lead is commercial, we have certain, commercial like fields that we want to set required. But if it's residential, we don't need those fields. So you'll configure your conditional. So our first step is check what type of a lead it is. And you'll see the true path across the top. So if it is commercial, I want all of these things to be set required. What's very important is to set the negative path as well, because if that data point changes, you want the requirement to change as well. So our negative path is just repeating the same fields on the positive path, just changing the requirement level. This is used really nicely in conjunction with some of the other actions that we'll see in future business rules,
like set visibility. So what we're talking about, we're saying show and or we're saying to set your fields required or not required, right? But you can also show and hide them. So if my field is not required, do they even need to see it yet? Do they not have the data? If it's possible that they have the data, sure, it can still be there. But if it's something they don't know at this stage, then you might as well hide it, right? So in Heidi's example around commercial real estate in the last slide, we know if it's not commercial, all this stuff can be hidden, right? So we can create those multiple branches. If it's residential, hide these things. Otherwise, show all these things, right? So I think that's a really good way to keep your forms clean and help users enter the right things.
Another cool use case for business rules that I don't think many people utilize is the show error message action. And this is pretty neat. So this is something you typically would need custom code JavaScript to put on your form to implement. But with a simple business rule, just write your conditional, and then you can display an error message, which is really cool. So this example, if my opportunity probability is greater than or equal to 75%, I have an estimated close date, but I don't have estimated revenue, I'm showing the user an error message that says you have to give me estimated revenue. So they won't be able to proceed on until they provide that information. So it's a nice way to enforce this only at the time it's needed and not right at the beginning. Because like Kylie said, we don't want to have all these barriers to entry. We don't have the estimated revenue be required until it needs to be.
And I definitely know people aren't using this, but you can add recommendations. So this is really cool because I can say, when this certain condition happens, show a recommendation, and it appears like you see in the bottom of the screen there, where it says you should set the shipping method for USA, right? And when I click apply, it actually can execute an action. So like update a field or make certain changes. And I configure all of that as part of the business rule. So not only am I telling them, hey, this is something I want you to do, but I'm giving them one click way to actually make that change. And this is something I'm really excited to see how we can use Power FX in business rules. So I can use Power FX with my recommendation. It'll be exciting.
So all of this last group of tips goes along with this next one, which is to help keep your forms clean. Another user adoption thing, right? We want the users to be able to quickly, easily see the data that they need to provide. And we can do that by using all these business rules we talked about. You can also use Form Designer, which is shown here in the screenshot, tabs, so like building your forms using all the different components available to you, and JavaScript. So there are a lot of tools available for you, most of them out of the box except JavaScript, that can help you to accomplish this. So keep your forms really clean and streamlined, easy to understand. Use tabs if you have some really long scrolling forms. Try to keep it to just one scroll or no scrolls, and then build out the tab interface to make it easier to utilize.
Yeah, and now our forms are all good. So let's talk about our fields, right? Or our columns. It's really important to make sure you pay attention to what data type you're selecting for your columns as you are creating them, because this can't be changed later. There are a few things, like I can change my the length of my fields or the maximum minimum values, or if there's a kind of subtype of the field, I might be able to change it, but generally you can't change it. So you do want to be careful and aware of those things and select them. And a big way to plan this out, I think, is to think about reporting. So how do I want to use this field in the future in my reporting, and use that to determine what type of field you should be selecting.
So more on fields, I think it's a great idea, and it's good to get into the habit of just adding a field tip or a description on each column or field that you add. So on the screenshot on the left here, you can see there's a description box and it says, this is the column description, put a tooltip. So what it looks like once you have this implemented is on the screenshot on the right. When a user hovers over that field, in this case, it's website, it's going to display that information. And this is useful if you want to define what type of data should be in there, or guide the user gently if it's a little confusing, or if there's a calculation and you want to just define what it is so they know where the data is coming from. But if you get into the habit of adding that description as you add your column, it can be super helpful for your users and decrease the amount of time that you'll have to troubleshoot with them.
Okay, let's talk about calculated and roll-up fields. So these are two types of smart fields that I can use to kind of enhance our data, right? So first, calculated fields allow me to set up a condition and then determine the calculation based on that condition. So in this case, it can be, we have an example where I want my full name to be my first name and my last name, or I can be using it based on mathematical functions. You'll see in our screenshot, we're looking for a due date, and we're adding 7 days to our created on. So there's some functions that we can use in there. And so you'll see that these can be used for text fields, choice fields, and math, cool stuff. Lots of options.
Roll-up fields are another way to use cool math stuff. So roll-up fields is an aggregation over related records. So we wrote in here, it's similar to using sum, min, max, or count in Excel. So examples here that we've implemented before, I want to roll up, I want to show all open opportunities on the account form, or I want to see all cases linked to an account. So you can aggregate this using sum, count, min, max, or average, and you can use a calculated field that Kylie was just telling us about in your roll-up. They run asynchronously in the background, which means they're not going to happen in real time. So they're scheduled system jobs, I think every 12 hours. You can manually update them on the form. So there's a screenshot here on the right showing you what a roll-up field looks like. This is looking for total opportunities on the account, and it's awesome.
It's awesome. Also, you should set up duplicate detection rules. So we've been talking about lots of things to enhance your data, keep your data clean, and you can also do that through duplicate detection rules. So this could be making sure you don't have duplicate contacts being created or duplicate accounts. And what you can do is review the out-of-the-box rules and determine if those fit your needs, turn them off and on as needed, and then add new rules that will make sense in your environment. And then make sure you move these rules with solutions, right? Again, we don't want to be making these changes directly in production. You can put those duplicate detection rules in your solution, and then you can move them as part of your deployment process and hopefully keep your data clean.
And that's new-ish to move
Yeah.
it in solutions, which is cool. Okay, so we're going to talk about relationships, specifically table relationships. You can define a relationship between a table as 1 to n, n to 1, or n to n, or 1 to 1, but we won't talk about that. So 1 to n, an example that you have is one account can have many contacts. N to 1, there are many activities on one opportunity. And an example of end to end would be marketing lists. So many contacts can be on one list and one contact can be on many lists. Right now, the Maker portal has limited functionality, so switch to Classic for some more capabilities, which we'll talk about in a bit. And there's screenshots here to show you the difference between Power Apps and Classic. Now, the Maker portal is being enhanced, I feel like, every month. So there's a little bit more you can do on the relationships in the Maker portal than before.
But we'll talk about them more in a second. Also, if you're doing many-to-many relationships, you can use that out-of-the-box many-to-many relationship type. You can set that up. But generally, what we recommend is creating another table in the middle. So we would call that like a custom intersect table. So I'd have maybe my accounts have a one-to-many relationship with the status, which has a one-to-many relationship with some other custom table, right? And the idea of that status table in the middle is it can maintain details about this relationship. When was it created? Does it have an active or inactive status? You know, things like that. And a lot of times that's really helpful because just using the many to many, I can't trigger based on when it's added and things like that.
My favorite thing on relationships is field mapping, and this is only available on 1 to n and n to 1. And this allows you to map field values from one table to another. So an example you might be familiar with is the lead to opportunity qualification process. Things like topic and the contact and the account, everything kind of like maps over when you hit the qualify button, and it just appears on the opportunity as data. But if you've added any custom fields on your lead, you've probably noticed that those don't move over automatically on the opportunity, but they can. And you do that by customizing your field mapping. So again, you add that 1 to n or n to 1 relationship to your solution file. The screenshot's at the bottom. You're going to hit that mappings button, which is highlighted, which gives you the screenshot at the top. And then you're going to map like fields to like fields and magic happens.
And only in Classic. Okay, we have a few security tips coming up. So first of all, don't use your out-of-the-box security roles. There's a few reasons for this. One, Microsoft can push changes to those roles that you're not prepared for. If you make changes to that, those can be overwritten by Microsoft pushing changes. And also, there's probably more access in there than you want, right? Maybe you have salespeople that are able to export, that are able to delete, that are able to do who knows what, bulk edit. We probably don't want that. So we encourage you to go to the out of the box role and then click copy role and then use that as a new custom role that you can set up and reduce the privileges down to what you want them to be.
So more on the security side, there are field security profiles. So if you need to go a little bit farther and restrict specific column access only for specific users, you can accomplish that by creating a field security profile. You would associate existing security profiles with the table or the entity, and then you're going to use the field permissions to define the access. And that's a screenshot at the bottom where it's giving you the information about the field security profile itself. So again, at that column level, you can define which users are going to have read access, so who can see the data of that field. This is really great if you need to restrict personal information like a social security number or some other confidential information. Create, so anyone in that profile would be able to add data to that field, and then update. So after it's been created, who has the ability to do that?
Do you want to take this one?
Sure. So Power Apps and Outlook equals heart. So I love the Dynamics app for Outlook, the lightweight app, the one that rolled out a few years ago, not the clunky plugin. So with the Outlook plugin, the Outlook app, you're able to track emails with one click. You can track Outlook meetings as Dynamics or Power Apps appointments with one click. And then you can add new leads, accounts, cases, contacts, or custom tables from an Outlook email or meeting. It's so slick. It's so handy. If your users are heavy Outlook users, they will love this. This isn't Dynamics 365 only. This is for any Power App. You can license the Dynamics app the Dynamics app for Outlook for just $5 per user per month.
And you can customize those forms that appear in Outlook. So if I'm in Outlook and I track an email, let's say I track it to an account, and by default it shows something like the business phone and their company name, but maybe this is not helpful to you, right? Maybe you'd like to see a custom account type, or, maybe the state that they're in, something like that. You can customize that form. So there's already a quick view app form Outlook form. It has a very long name, and it determines which fields are displayed when the email is tracked. So you can go in there and modify those fields and set them to what makes sense for your business and kind of get things all nice for them.
And now we're going to talk about another cool feature with integration, and that's the Microsoft Teams integration. So this comes out of the box too. It allows for really enhanced collaboration. It comes kind of two ways. You can either display Dynamics 365 data in Teams channels, which is really handy if you want people to view but not edit Dynamics data without a Dynamics license. And the cooler way, I think, is embedding a Teams chat right in Dynamics 365. This is a preview feature that I'm really anxious to get GA because I want to use it so badly, both for myself and for my customers. So the screenshot at the bottom is showing you I'm on an account record and I am chatting in Teams without leaving Dynamics to go into Teams. And you can even pin that to it. It's really cool.
All right, now know your different form types. So when you're setting up your tables, you can set up several different types of forms and they each have their own purpose. I have my main form. I can have multiple forms here, and this is the main user interface for interacting with the data either via the web or mobile. And if users have access to multiple main forms, they can switch between them. Our quick create form, that's the form that is used when I click the plus button at the top or if I create new from some places within the app. And so it's optimized for fast creation of the record. So it just has a minimal number of fields, anything they need to create. I also have my quick view form. This allows me to view data from a related record. So on my main form, I can insert a quick view form from another table.
So table-wise, we're going to talk about global search now. This is something you configure at the classic interface. So switch to classic. And then this tip is specifically around which tables are searched in global search. Out of the box, there are some weird ones that get included, like user. So out of the box, user is a table that is searched on global search. I don't know anyone who actually needs to search the user table. So for things like this, you'd go to settings, then administration. From that administration area, you go to the system settings and the general tab. So that is in the screenshot at the bottom. You're going to scroll down to where you see setup search, and then there's a little button that says select. So then you're going to select your entities or your tables. So add your custom tables that you want to be searchable in global search and remove the ones you don't need.
And similarly, I can configure what it's like to search on a specific table, right? So what we were just talking about is searching across the whole app. So your search at the top, but within a specific view, I can search just that table. And so I can control that via the quick find view. So this is one of the specific views within that table, and you can determine kind of what is searched, right? So in this case, anytime we search, it's only searching our open account. Open, is this account? These screenshots don't go together.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. It's only searching whichever ones, right? And you can also determine what fields or columns are being searched. So I can choose what my find columns are, which impacts what Heidi was saying before, because those are the same find columns being used at the global
So
search.
Power Automate is a great way to automate manual tasks. So if you've been using classic workflow, this is like the future. Power Automate is really cool. You can create flow automations, which allow you to extend your Dynamics 365 system way beyond the traditional CRM, the service, the sales, and the marketing. So there are 830 plus Microsoft certified connectors. So these are simply wrappers around an API that allow you to very simply configure automation. So you can have these actions triggered by Dynamics 365 activities in your Dataverse. So something happens to a record and I want all these external things to be updated. Or you can use external triggers like your marketing automation, social media, anything, and make changes to your Dataverse.
And one of the cool connectors I can use within Power Automate is approvals. So we're going to talk a little bit about them on these next two slides. So approvals allow us to automate any approvals within your organization. So this doesn't have to be related to Dynamics or Dataverse, but it can be, which is really cool. And there's 4 different types of approvals. I can either have everyone I send it to has to approve, or only the first person to respond. And then I can do both those same things with custom responses. So it doesn't have to just be approve and reject. It could be more information needed or canceled or whatever we want to call it to align with our organization's language, or even to have more than 2 options, right? Maybe there is a third option, not just approve and reject. And something that we see is approval templates. So oftentimes, let's say my approval needs to go through multiple levels, and I might have my opportunity, and based on the opportunity value will determine who that needs to go to. And so how we've usually set this up is we'll set up an approval template table that includes, who is what our level is, right? And then it has another custom table related to it of the steps. So it says when my opportunity is over 50,000, it goes to Bob, then Sally to approve, right? And I have a third custom table that's linked to my opportunity that controls where it is and contains all that information for that specific approval. So when I submit my opportunity for approval, it gets the approval template and the steps and creates that table and then uses that to follow the whole thing. It's really cool.
All right. Let's talk about people and how we learn for just a moment. So people learn differently. I have a couple different buckets here: visual learners, oral auditory learners, reading and writing, or kinesthetic. And it's a great idea, even if you don't buy into learning styles, it's a great idea to differentiate your training materials and your content to be able to reach different learners. So there's a lot of bullet points here about different ways you can train your users, different materials that you can create and craft that kind of reach different learning preferences. So live training is always the best. It reaches everyone, but it's not always possible. Like today, we're giving this virtually. But there are real cool things like quick reference guides, job aids, coaching, case studies, podcasts, videos, discussion groups, flow charts, diagrams, and all kinds of cool stuff. Can I take this one too? All right, so more on the training stuff. It's a great idea to deliver your training from a role-based perspective. So instead of crafting like a nice half-day training that covers everything and have everyone come and have the same training, differentiate it, right? So the orange arrow down the middle are like some tasks that maybe all of your users need. So you give that core training to everybody and keep it short. Short chunks are better than a whole day. No one's going to retain all of that. Then you'll have a sales training that's just the content that your sales users need. Then we'll have a different content for your service learners, and so on and so forth. So you're going to determine who your learners are, what they need to do in the system, and group those based on their role, not their job, what they're going to be doing in the system. So anyone that's doing the similar things will get the similar training.
And we encourage you to offer ongoing learning opportunities. So we can't just train them once and help they'll remember everything, right? Because you're going over so much information, they can't remember all of it. And our training isn't just about go live, right? It's about their ongoing use and making sure that we're continually helping them be more effective and aware of new features. So we encourage you to offer these ongoing opportunities, such as lunch and learns, sending tips and tricks, maybe a newsletter, or having some kind of video library. We also talked a lot about, or hear about in other sessions you might have attended at Summit, about embedding your training, right? And finding ways to make sure that training is accessible to them right from within Dynamics or Dataverse or their Power App, just finding ways to make it easy for them. Can I take this one?
Mhm.
Okay, here's some more security tips. When you're looking at your security role, there's this lovely setting for member privilege inheritance. So many hard words. And this can be set to team privileges only, meaning if it says something has user access, it's only for the team, not for me as a person. So I want you to check your roles and change them to direct user and team level privileges. This means that I could fully manage my security from a team level because I don't need users to have any role directly assigned to them anymore. And this, the direct user and team is now the default, but if you have any older roles or you've been using Dynamics for a while, it might still be on the team privileges only setting. But that's really cool. So like I said, we can manage, oh, I'm still, just keep going. We can manage security with teams. So what you can do is you use your Active Directory groups or Office groups and link those to a team within Dataverse. And so then I can assign security roles to those teams. So anytime users are added to those groups by like your Active Directory help desk team, whatever, then they automatically have the access from those roles assigned to the team, right? So this allows me as the Dynamics administrator to not have to worry about any of that, right? All of that access can be managed through the groups instead of me needing to manually update things. And so, like I said, to do that, check your team inheritance settings. You'll have your team set up for the Active Directory groups and have roles assigned to those teams. Okay.
Hey, now scary permissions. We recommend removing delete for everything. You probably don't want your users to be able to delete records. There's no Control Z in Dynamics or Power Apps. You can't quickly undo it. Once they've deleted a record, it's gone, and you have to start thinking about backups and restorations. So train your users to deactivate records instead. It falls off of their list of active records. For all intents and purposes, to them, it's deleted. Bonus tip, which Kylie taught me, click on a column or row in a security role to change all permissions at once. You don't have to click that bubble 500 times, just have to click it once. So that's a fabulous tip. So again, your system admins will have delete. It's not like nobody can delete records, but for everyone else, really remove those delete because that's more headache than it's worth.
Agreed. And I'd also say remove sharing because do I really need sharing most of the time, right? I've set up my security model in such a way to grant the correct people access to records. Do I really want users to be able to go in there and kind of add and change and make the security their own? No. So, and the other piece we want to be aware of is the relationships we talked about before have cascading permissions. So if I share an account, then that could cascade and share a whole bunch of records related to that account that I might not want to be shared. And if I keep using sharing like crazy, eventually it could have impacts on my performance and things like that. So just remove that access. This will also clean up your ribbon and remove buttons that users don't need to see.
So Kylie talked about this a little bit earlier. There are some dangerous permissions that you may or may not want your users to have. And these live on all of the security roles at the chunk at the bottom of like all of the tabs or most of the tabs. So we're calling out a few specific ones here. Bulk delete. Do you want your users to be able to select 250 or however many records and hit delete and then they're all gone? Probably not. Likewise, bulk edit. I have had to do so many cleanup jobs based on bulk edit and somebody accidentally overwriting the wrong field or another field in addition to one that they want. So take that one away. And export to Excel. This might be a great thing for your organization and you might absolutely want this turned on. It might also be a terrible thing for your organization and you absolutely want it turned off. There's a lot of other ones here that you can kind of see in that screenshot, but take a look at all those scary things.
Okay, editable grids. So editable grids are super cool because you can use them. I need to stop saying super cool. I am irritating
Super
myself.
cool.
Editable grids are very interesting because I can use them to edit records that are 2 hops away. So I can configure this to show me, so here I'm in my account, and then I'm showing contacts in my editable grid, which I can change from the grid. And then I can say, okay, here in this case, we're showing cases related to those contacts. So I'm showing not 2 different related levels of related records, and then I can change them. And this must be set up in Classic for right now, but this is going to be part of that control. So really cool to see. Oh, I did it again. Very interesting. So now you can see those 2 levels. And bonus tip, I can actually enable this on a table as well. So within, again, within a Classic, I can go to a specific view for my table, and then I can turn on the editable grid control for the table, so that in this example, right, I'm looking at all of my active accounts and I can edit it right from there. So it lets me kind of almost more like Excel and change fields right there. Just be careful if you have fields that are read only on your form that you have in these grids, then they're going to be editable, which we probably don't want. So make sure you're testing this out and thinking through those items.
Yeah, and as a table level control, all of your views will be editable grid. You can't do just one view or two.
Mm.
This is your tip. Do you want to take it?
I guess so. So add an admin area to your app. So something that we encourage, like so often you have configuration tables, right? You have maybe your facilities, your locations, states, who knows, all kinds of tables that you as an admin need to use, or maybe the configuration table that we talked about earlier, right? So I encourage you create a new section on your app, call it admin, and add these areas to it. So then you can access them without needing to switch apps or without needing to only use advanced find. You'll still have your security set up for your regular users, right? They might be able to see this data and not edit it, and only your admin users can edit. But it all keeps it there so you can access it easily.
All right, so continuing on the thread of model-driven apps, you're going to add pages to enhance your app, which is super cool, Kylie, and really fun. So there's a screenshot here on what add page looks like. It's a really simple wizard. You're going to define if you would like to add a table-based view and form, a dashboard, or custom. So table-based view and form is just what's going to show up, which grid, which area of your system. Your dashboards would be Dynamics 365 dashboards or Power BI dashboards if you have that all linked together. And it's really simple to kind of just walk through that wizard and just keep hitting next. And then you're going to select your details and add. And then as soon as you hit add in that kind of wizard walkthrough, it automatically will add it to your app navigation. And from there, you can kind of configure that and update it as you need to.
Okay, if you're not using XRM Toolbox, you need to be. So go and download it right now. This is something you just download it and then you connect to your different instances. So what this means is I could connect to my dev environment and make changes, or connect to higher environments if I needed to. One tip we'll give you is, if you can, connect to your dev environment and still move those changes with solutions. But depending on the different tools, you might not be able to do that. So our next few slides, we're going to talk about some specific tools so you'll understand why we think XRM Toolbox is so powerful. But it's a community-driven project, I guess, that different community members are delivering specific tools for it, right? So you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So the first one we are going to highlight is the metadata document generator. And this is handy if you are working on some documentation. You can export the metadata for each individual table. So this would be all the form information. This could be used for nice cleanup if you need to kind of remove some fields. But Kylie had a fun little tip to use this as your document generation starter. So do you want to share your story in the last 15 seconds? Because it's
Yeah.
awesome.
So what happens is someone comes to you and says, I need a data dictionary. And you say, great, it'll take me 4 days. 2 days later, you take 2 minutes, you run this tool, and then you just provide it to them, and they think they're getting it like 2 days early, and you're like, I worked really hard on this, not telling them it only took you 5 minutes. Oh, it's so great. You want to do this one?
Sure. So then we have the attribute usage inspector. Now I like this to use to find fields that you aren't using. So this is handy if you get a request from your users or management, I'd like to remove fields X, Y, and Z. Well, run this tool first to see if anyone's putting data in there. Or if you're running into limits, like I have so many fields and I can't add new ones, well, run this and find out which nobody has. So in this screenshot, this was a demo environment, so it's probably a bad one to run it on. But you can see there's a lot of fields with that green bar. So 100% of my records have data in those fields. I don't want to remove those fields. But there's a lot here that say 0%, so they're not used at all. I'd say those are safe to remove. There's no data you're going to need. But if you do have to remove a field that has data, you'll have to have a data archiving solution to how you remove it.
Yeah, plan that out. Also, the user settings utility is super helpful. This allows me to set the personal options for my users. So I can go in here and select specific users I want to set it for. And this can be used to set their time zone for the first time, maybe set the number of records that they're going to see in views, right? So which we said doesn't matter because now there's infinite scrolling. It doesn't matter. You can still do it.
Well, if you're on-prem, you can use it that way.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good call out that all these tools can be used in your on-premise system too. You can use this to also set some of your email tracking options, right? Which emails do you want to be tracked? Do I want contacts to be created when I track records, and cool things like that?
COE starter kit. So there's some really great documentation. There's a great link here that you can access. We'll put this slide up somewhere and link to it in our comments below. But you can use the Center of Excellence starter kit to help you with ALM, user adoption. There's so much stuff and it's free. You don't have to pay extra for it. So take advantage of all of this awesome work. If you need help getting started or fixing some of these things in your organization, it's a really great thing to check out. That was too fast. I got through that quick.
You've been talking like me. Now we have to use a deep breath. We're almost done. We're almost there.
12 to go.
Or is this the one? We had one that didn't advance, remember? We'll do it. It's fine. Okay, AI Builder. So AI Builder is something I like to talk about. So hopefully if you were at Summit, I did a session on it. But anyways, AI lets us infuse artificial intelligence into our business processes. So there are pre-built models and models you can customize, but all of these are things I can use kind of point and click. So you don't need to be a developer to set up this artificial intelligence. So a good example is like sentiment, right? I can just set that up and start using it in a Power App or a Flow. I can also be creating form processing models. So I can take a picture of a form and have it automatically read the data and put it in Dataverse. So lots of cool things that are available within AI Builder for you to use in your organization. Go ahead.
So Canvas apps are cool because they can be anything you want them to be, right? They don't have the confines that a model-driven app does. And now if you want more flexibility in your model-driven app, you can go through and add a page. Remember we talked about table-based view and form or dashboard or custom. So custom is a Canvas app. So you can embed your Canvas app directly in your model-driven app, which gives you so much more power. So again, you're just seeing like the lines blurring between, you know, this is CRM and this is my silo and this is what I can do. Well, that's kind of flattening out a bit with Power Automate and with the addition of Canvas apps and embedding your Power BI dashboards. I mean, you really can put all of this stuff, which is powerful alone, more powerful and better when you put it all together and just expand much more. Oh, sorry, I didn't know this was the next tip.
You led right in to embedding our Power BI dashboard. So we can give users a one-stop place for all of their data. So this means instead of needing to go to Dynamics and Power BI, I can add a Power BI dashboard right into Dynamics. I can even add Power BI visualizations into a few places. So what you can do is you have to enable this in the admin center for each environment, and then you can start adding your dashboards. Also keep in mind users will need to have direct access to that dashboard. So I can't just have users that have full access to the workspace. They're going to need access to that dashboard to be able to see it in Dynamics. And then within Dynamics, it will look just like it does in Power BI, or they could pop it open to open in Power BI.
All right, so tip number 52 is about using controls to help visualize your data. So these are UI PCF controls, and there are some free out-of-the-box ones that you can configure directly from Power Apps. And Classic interface supports this as well. So if those of you are on premise, you can still take advantage of these form controls. So there's a screenshot on the bottom here. Nice people, yes, no. That's our toggle switch. So that's a nice way to change your checkbox or your yes, no dropdown to just visualize that data a little bit differently. So I like these because it will make this easier for people who are using mobile devices or tablets to access their data. There's star ratings. There are some number slider controls. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do directly on your form.
I love the toggle. I never want to see a checkbox again.
Yeah.
So also these controls can be built by, developers at your organization or other people in the community. So you should check out the PCF gallery, which is pcf.gallery, and these are free community controls. So you can search this site to find controls that meet your business scenario. Maybe you want a field color to change, you want to display an attachment, other things like that. So you can search this, and you can search for ones that are already in managed solutions. Or like I said, you can create your own to customize your forms and use them in multiple places throughout your app. Or you could even post it on PCF Gallery yourself for other people to use.
Okay, say this with me, friends. With great power comes great responsibility. So we're diving into Level Up, which is the most powerful and the most dangerous tool I think we've talked about. Level Up is a Chrome extension or an Edge extension. So you would add it into Chrome or Edge, and then you have access to all of these incredible tools. So some particularly dangerous ones are God mode. Some awesome ones are logical names. If you're writing flows or you need to access the schema names, turn on logical names, and it's going to show you those schema names right next to the display names. Can you tell which two I use the most? Blur fields is handy too if you're doing some screen recordings and you want to use it. Impersonate a user. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't, but you can see how other people are viewing Dynamics.
Okay. And now we're coming to the end, just our few last tips where we want to talk about some of the resources that you have available to you, right? So check out these community resources like join local user groups. You can join my DC chapter or Heidi's Philly chapter, the Power Platform weekly newsletter, PCF Gallery like we talked about. And Heidi, you want to talk about the last one?
Connectreview.com is another free community resource where you can view all of the 829 Power Automate connectors organized by use case.
Excellent, excellent.
Lots of cool community things. And then we've got some Microsoft Learn information and content that we recommend based on what we've covered in our tips and tricks today, 60 tips in 60 minutes. So we've got links here that you can access in the slide deck to the Power Platform fundamentals if you want to learn more about like entry-level Power Platform. Dynamics fundamentals, so we have them for each of the major CRM areas. We've got customer service, sales, and marketing. Then we've got this great one that'll give you more information about configuring forms, charts, and dashboards in model-driven apps and success by design. So you can access all of these great learning paths, also free resources from Microsoft. It's a blend of quizzes to test your knowledge. It's got some labs in some of them, and there's a lot of video walkthroughs as well as just lists and content. So reaching all of your learning styles.
And we also encourage you to check out just the standard docs, which are now also called Learn. just to keep us all confused. But all of your documentation, this is going to be your first place to stop to see how things work, how to customize things, how to work through different issues that you're having or things like that. So make sure you check out the docs and those references. And there are different docs for on-premise and online. So for our folks that are still on-premise, make sure you're looking for your on-premise documentation to see stuff that's updated for your current state.
Good tip.
Yeah. Okay. Almost done.
Okay, tip number 58, read the release notes table of contents, which we learned about from Dionne Taylor at a recent event that she was doing. So there's a link to all of the release plans, and they're hundreds and hundreds of pages long. There's PDF versions if you like that. There's also this handy table of contents, which is awesome. So it's organized by Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. Now, if you're here with us for Dynamics 365, don't forget to read Power Platform release notes as well, because there's a lot of things in there that affect us in Dynamics as well. Specifically, check out Power Apps and see what's happening in model-driven apps. And then if you're utilizing any of the other tools like Power BI, Canvas apps, Power Automate, make sure you look at those too. So we have links to all the release plans. We have the table of contents all right there.
Yes. And turn on these new features. So when you get these release notes, the features are going to fall into a few categories. Some of them are going to be part of the wave release, and some of them are things that will need to be turned on individually, right? So if you want to make sure you're testing your wave releases early, so in your admin center, enable that in your development environment and make sure you're testing and things are working, like I said. From also the admin center, you can go to features and enable specific things so you can test them out, or just enable them if they're things that are an opt-in feature. And there are also a few things that are available in the preview maker portal. So that's make.preview.powerapps. And this would be things like right now, the formula fields, formula columns are available there.
And our final tip, which is super cool, follow us for more content. So here's our contact information. You can reach out to either Kylie or I. We'd be happy to chat more, answer any questions you have. Tell us if we missed any awesome tips that we should have had here.
Yeah, thank you guys. And thank you so much for attending and joining us today. Do we want to go through some of our bonus tips quickly?
Yeah, let's give them bonus.
Okay. Tips. We've been going so fast, but we got to keep it going. I mean, I think we're under our 60 minutes, so I think it's okay. All right. You want to take the first one, or you want me to?
You can do that.
Sure.
You're Madam Security.
Assign a security group. So if you are using Dynamics Dataverse Online, right? If I don't have a security group on my environment, then everyone in my whole Active Directory will be added as a user in Dynamics, and that is annoying and hard to manage. So make sure you're using a security group and setting that up on your environment. And then, you can also use the groups for your teams like we talked about earlier. Oops, I messed up. Okay.
So set your refresh cadence. There are different options for your environment to get refreshed. Do you want your updates from Microsoft all the time? Then keep it at frequent. Do you want to have a little bit more control and have it just be every few months? Change it to moderate. So you do have a little bit of control of how often these refreshes happen to your system. So set that there.
Check out what it says. Also, copy a link. So for the old people like us who have been doing this for a while, we used to have the email link button and the copy a link button. And now copy a link has been gone, and it's sad, but it's back. So if you go to the features area, like we talked about before, so Power Platform Admin Center, select your environment, settings, and features, you can turn on the collaboration features here, which is still in preview, but it will be cool. And this is what gives you access to that copy a link function, and then also some other cool team stuff that's coming later.
Before you move, I think it's funny that both you and I are so excited about the copy a link, even though that feature turning on also has bigger things, I'd argue, like co-presence, online status, but we care about copy a link.
Everything else that we're turning on is so much more important, but all I care is that I want to copy a link in one
Makes me
click.
happy.
It's so exciting. Okay.
Oh,
Last
so
one.
there are several mobile apps for your users, but they're not all the same, and you should pick the right one. So what are there? There's Dynamics 365 for sales, which is optimized for your sellers. It is not optimized for offline. So this is great if you're always in an area with coverage and you don't need to use offline features. You also have Dynamics for phones, which is the older version. It does allow you to go offline. So that's still out there. It's still an option for you. If you're on premise, you're going to need that version. But if you're online, you should use Power Apps. That's the modern version of Dynamics 365 for phones. Offline has this really cool preview feature, and it's offline first. So there's great offline mode that doesn't require you to download all that information onto your phone and then batch all the updates. So check out the Power Apps modern version of Dynamics 365 for phones. That's the preferred one, if you can, if you're not on-prem.
And I think that's our last tip. So thank you everyone for joining us for 65 tips in 60 minutes. And, we encourage you to connect with us, like, follow, share, and add your tips in the comments below. Anything else, Heidi?
No, thank you.